and we'll finish him off. I bet that happened to you guys more than a couple of times. Hey guys, it's Tombox. Welcome to Tombox Z, where I'm going to be talking to you guys about my Blue Mask deck, my top 10 Blue Mask deck. To be fair, I didn't hit top 10. I finished 12th place. Unfortunately, I botched one day on the Wednesday where I was trying additional spells in the Blue Mask deck, and that completely backfired that day. Lost additional 3 rounds because I drew into those spells and they did not give me the right tempo. But anyways, if you guys are going to enjoy these kinds of videos from me, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button, hit the like, hit subscribe, ding notification bell, because I don't post very many videos on here. I will be covering a mask meta video very soon, just to talk about the interactions that you should be paying attention to and getting good at this game so you don't suck. If you suck at this game, well, I'm here to correct that. You know, you don't deserve to suck at this game. So here's a quick overview of the deck. Force recommendation for Blue Mask, Phoenix, and Pegasus. This is a correct recommendation because you play a lot based off of movement and you want to use the Phoenix. The Phoenix there is to keep you alive. Now this is my build. It's quite different from the recommended best deck build. You know how they have a best deck build. I use the best deck build that they gave us. Like, this is the best quote unquote best deck build that they threw at us. I used this recommendation at first. It was pretty cool because no one knew what they were doing, and then there was like great synergy, great flow. But then I came to realize there's a couple of cards in here that I don't recommend, which would be the Weapon of Wizardry. It's great in like any other blue deck, especially if you play Chiron. This card is amazing. But if you don't play Chiron, it's pretty heavy on the cost, and it doesn't provide you with the additional boost and the ramping that you need and the amount of security that you need. You're just trading one card, letting your opponent base. And the bad part is, if you're playing against a mass deck basing their minion, you're ramping them up for them, and that doesn't feel very good. And that's actually one of the reasons why I cut the card entirely out. But anyways, back to my variation of the deck, which actually helped me win, I would say 90% of my mirror matches, which is why I really enjoy my build of this. So with that being said, this is a mid-range aggro deck, and with the mid-range aggro deck, you start off by ramping up your mana, and once you get to the mid game, that's where you start to push for the damage, try to morph your minions up. In terms of the kit, it has the morph. If you guys don't know what morph does, just check the number of mana that is in your base, and when you swing and deal damage to a force or life, you're going to be able to exchange that minion. You're going to tag it into your deck, and you're going to swap it for another mask minion of the same color, and that minion basically comes out regardless if your mana is active or rested. So that is why it's extremely key, where even in the late game, a small tiny minion could convert into a big boss, and then a big boss will just, steamroll you completely. It just feels really bad. Now there's other force recommendations here. I kind of skipped that part right now. Chiron, which is a possibility. I tried it out on one of my runs, and that's what kind of kicked me out of the top 10 because it didn't work out for me. Because I lost to it, that's why I tried it out, but I just don't understand the flow of it. It's just that to me it feels a little bit slower, and I felt like I was helping my opponent a lot in some sense, because I was basing their stuff for him. If it's a mask mirror match, you don't want to help your opponent base their stuff just because they actually get to move a couple turns ahead, and that's no good. And okay, so anyways, you can try that one, because then your ramp up will be based off of using spells to ramp up. You want to get your Sheldons in, you want to get your Sheldon spell number 2, and that's going to be able to push one of your minions out and give you a blue mana, and you want to be able to cycle that. And you'll be able to use Dive Assault a bit more, Marine Assault a bit more, because if you use Marine Assault, it's going to do the same thing with your mass stuff, and you'll be able to use those guys to protect your life instead of instead of just having actual mana minions on the board. Then there's also Cyclops. I don't exactly recommend it, but it does help you win trades. I think one deck that could possibly do Cyclops would be white, because white can transform even if they just win in exchange. Color wise, it's just blue and black. Kit wise, it has morph, and morph is really cool. Of course, it's the tag-in mechanic. There's also mana ramping coming from Measle, which lets you just base a mask base minion, so that's pretty cool. There's a lot of pushback because this is blue, and the key feature of this entire deck would be the amount of reactivating there is from the bosses, from the mid-range boss, from 6 cost and up. It's just insane, the amount of damage and the amount of aggression that you can push out, and that plus the mass boost utility. You have like the blade, the glove, and the motorcycle. The blade lets you transform ahead of time. The glove, basically this one, I guess anyone can use it. When you attack a force, minion can't be blocked. This works really well paired with the 2 cost of any color, because that minion, when it is rested, it cannot be targeted, making sure that it will successfully land. However, once it's equipped with the glove, you have to be careful because you have to somehow unequip it because it's no longer useful to you. That's why a lot of the times the AI tells you to base random stuff. Anyways, let me give you guys the flow of this deck. Turn 1 and 2, you're gonna try to guess what they have. If they start with a Sheldon, it's a good hand. If they start with a just a regular blank mana with a Jelly Girl, that is a bad hand. They are actually a little bit behind. You can be a bit more aggressive against them, especially if that is their turn 1. That is not ideal. They need a color mana, whether it be one of the masks, items, but if it's just a blank with a Jelly Girl, if they go first, they are behind by a whole turn, because basing the Jelly Girl will not give them an active mana, and that means if on their turn they go for another blank, you should be able to win that game because they've already fallen behind a little bit too much. So they don't have anything to interact with you by turn 2, and that's going to be a little bit too late, especially for mass, where mass just snowball like crazy. Now, if they go with Ray Rider and they're able to base it, that's good for them because they got to draw. But when you play against like BS decks, usually they like to leave the Ray Rider out just so that they block your cost reduction. And if they block your cost reduction, everything gets a bit more expensive, and it really slows you down. And they're not really going to block with the Ray Rider very much unless you're playing Mask. Orlean 2 is their number 1 morph, and the whole focus in the beginning is to survive and push to 6 mana. And once you get to 6 mana plus, you're in the punching phase. So each of these guys, they do something different. Orlean 6 is the one that constantly give you additional movement. If you boost it, it'll give you a movement back. So in other words, he gets free boosts on top of that. If you morph into him, he'll give you a movement as well. So he'll just give you a ton of movements, and when he punches, he does negative 300 BP and minus 1 DP. So it can actually nullify some of these other opposing mass minions as well, because mass minions, they have to deal damage, and if they can't deal damage, they just don't, they don't morph. That's the key thing, and that's why Orlean 6 is such a threatening thing. If something has 2, they'll just swing into it, reduce it by 1, and then they'll just reactivate it by boosting it and swing again and reduce the other part, and then now that minion can't do damage. So that's actually quite crucial. Orlean 7 is a low-cost wipe on boost and on summon. It's pretty good. And then Orlean 8 is just a mass wipe. So that's the initial rundown of the flow. Once they get to 8, and they are able to put the white mask, the little thing that looks like a little book, and then they put in Sheldon's spell number 3, the game is over. I have never lost a single game where I successfully executed that, and yeah, it's GG, because you can't target it, can't block. So, and he resurges about 3 times, so he deals about like 6 damage for free. So there's that. Anyways, let's move on to the actual deck right now. And I'm just going to give you guys my ratios right now. 3 copies of Sheldon, 1 copy of the Cutlass, 1 copy of the Gauntlet, 1 copy of Jet Phantom, and 1 copy of the Mechanical Attaché. Those would be the base minions. 3 copies of Jelly Girl. Early game, just there to ramp, but late game is there to actually double defend, gets back your spells to keep you alive. Triple copies of Mizo because it auto bases your mass items, and that's really, really good, especially if you're missing a specific color mana. That's why it's another one of your key starters. Then we have Ray Rider Poseidon, draw 1, which is very free, I guess. 2 cards for 1, basically +1 right there, and also is cost reduction control, really good against like Battle Spirits decks. There is your triple copy of your lowest cost, because remember, Morph Mechanic doesn't really care about if your mana is active or not. It only cares whether or not, you know, it is able to successfully swing. If you force block everything else and then you drop this guy's going to morph into a really big monster, which is really, really good. Mukuro, they recommended 3. I only played 2 because I don't think it's actually that necessary. I'd rather have a little bit more utility coming from something else. So this one lets you mulligan a lot of their big ones. And speaking of big ones, you don't want your 7 and your 8s in your hand in the early game. It is a complete clot, and being able to shuffle them away and drawing a fresh set of cards will secure the game for you half the time. It's really, really good. But then again, don't play more because it's not a colored mass minion for you to actually go forward. The 3 costs of the Predator, this one, originally there was 3. I cut it down to 2 because I don't like drawing into it. It doesn't actually have really good tempo. I believe when you go second, it's just not that great when you go second. Because you want to morph into it, you don't want to draw into it per se. But it is another low cost, so that's why it's at 2, just in case. Then there is Tidal Wave Triple because it's staple. This one, 2 copies of Marine Assault, 1 copy of the Dogged Animal, 2 copies of the Alex the Explorer, 4. So then there is also Valk, 2 copies of this, because I like to play what Yu-Gi-Oh calls hand traps. These are my hand traps, and being able to interact with my opponent during their turn is very just key of me here. And then there's the 5 cost Tentacle, 1 copy of this. 3 copies of this is mandatory. This is Orlean Monstrous Bird. It is one of your win cons. It's one of the win cons of your, well, of your 4 win cons. Then there is 7, which is the Royal Sea Dragon. Just 2 copies of this. You don't need 3 copies. The recommendation was 3. That is an overkill. Drawing into too many of these cards will brick your hand, and you don't want to brick in such a fast-paced game right now. And then there is Orlean Rule of the Waves, just 2 copies. You don't want it in your hand. You want to be able to morph it out, and you always want to shuffle this one back in. So those are the, like, auto mulligan cards if you see them, and that's kind of the run of the lineup. So to kind of break it all down, starter cards, Sheldon is a great card because it gives you additional movement. It gives you the launch to move your minion out and ramp up. And even in the late game, it gives you the bubble shield, which prevents you from being blocked. That is the late game killer play. That's why it's really, really good. You want to see a Mukuro. If you get Sheldon, Mukuro in the early game, and a Jelly Girl, that's the best opening, especially if you went first. If you went first, I think you're able to actually do quite a lot, simply because the Sheldon gets out, you get your +1 movement spell, you drop the Mukuro, it eats your movement, and then you drop a Jelly Girl earlier on the turn before. Now you can actually base everything, and you start with 4 mana on the turn 2, which is amazing. It's actually one of the best moves available for this particular deck. And then if you're able to capitalize off of that and start going into your 6s really early by having additional swoopers, then you're going to win. I don't think you're going to die very much, but as long as you're able to block the correct minions and drop Alex at the right time, it's really a matter of time before you drop the Monstrous Bird, the Sea Dragon, and the Rule of the Waves, and that's how you're going to win the game. So anyways, that's the rundown of the deck. Let's talk about some alternative techs. Just a friendly reminder that the Star Platinum OTK is performed by using a combination of the mechanical attache onto the Rule of the Waves plus a bubble shield. You're gonna get until you die. It's that same feeling. And now we know how Jotaro's victims feel like. Especially if you actually have been on the receiving end of this combo. Anyways, for tech fillers, okay, starting off, we have the 4 cost here. Why do we play the 4 cost? Like the Orlean Dogged Animal. Why? It's because he's big, and it's really key that he is big because when you get to the 3 mana phase to the 4 mana phase, I don't think there's a minion that large, and it's there to wall up against your opponent so that they can't get an easy swing. So even if they actually get the mana to the correct amount, you're able to use this one to block one so they don't even bother swinging. And then if you're holding on to an additional spell, perhaps a Tidal Wave, or maybe it's not a Tidal Wave, maybe it's another swooper like a Valk, then they can't even go in because they'll actually lose every trade possible, putting them super behind. That's why he's there, and that's why he also goes active when he comes out. Now, that's his purpose. And now that we got his purpose out of the way, next card we have is Weapon of Wizardry. I'm not running this because it doesn't advance my game state. All it does is put my opponent's game state behind, kind of, somewhat. Because if you actually push their stuff back into the base, that counts as their mana, and if they have a bunch of low cost guys coming out, then if they're able to successfully swing, and this thing costs 4, it's really heavy. I recommend running this if you're only using Chiron. I get that the recommended build is like, oh, you gotta play a couple copies of this. I tried it out before. It's cool. It kills the minion, opens a path. This one is more of an aggressive spell than an actual defensive one. I used it. It sucked for me. It didn't work out. I just lost, and I felt like quite a scrub for using it. So that's why using the swoop minions are much better, because they put your opponent's game state behind while pushing you ahead, while this one only pushes them behind but doesn't push you ahead either, so you're still kind of stuck. And if you push only a minion into the back, this is now at a very expensive tidal wave. And I think there are better efficient ways to use your mana, like using an Alex. I get it, Alex, it's a legendary card. I would still recommend crafting it. I mean, generically, there's a lot of cards that are worth crafting, and we know that the Divine Shot Rita is one of them, and Alex is, again, also one of those cards that you should have in your arsenal for depending on whichever deck that's going to need it. So, not exactly my recommendation here. I think this one is kind of like hot garbage, unless you're playing Chiron. Next up, we have... right. There's also the 2 cost here, Viper Ward. It's good for actually getting additional cards. First of all, it's a common card, so if you can't afford a lot of the legendaries, this is a good filler. And not only is it a good filler, it lets you draw cards. It lets you go ham with your hand, and then lets you redraw some cards, perhaps getting into those cards that you want to see. But if you draw into like the large minions, you best hope that you have Makura or its late game, so you can actually drop them out. But otherwise, this card's not too bad, and you just have to burn out your hand to actually get it out. That's cool. That's fine. I think next we have Crab Battle. All right, Crab Battle or Lay-In. This is a 1000 Blade. So a lot of people thought that you have to run multiple copies of this card, which is wrong, because this one actually, if you read a properly, copies of Orlin the 1000 Blades enters your field until you have the same number as your opponent. It's not digging it out of your deck. It is actually just cloning itself. It is Kage Bunshining all over the place, and with that in mind, you get to choose some to base back in down, and there are some that you can use to chump block. Basically, you're able to block. That's why this minion is rather weak. It only has 300 BP. If you're able to actually play this particular build, there is actually a build around this. You play with this and you use Orthus. Because it's a 5 cost, it gains an additional DP, which puts him into like a real big threat range. Just kind of funky there. Then there is the Tentacled. Tentacled, I play this one because it has a lot of utility, and especially if you need to get rid of minions, waste your opponent's movement, this is the one to do so. And there's also, there it is, Deep Breath. It's main and flash, it costs 5 though, so in other words, you don't even want to see it in the early game. It's a card that you want to draw into instead. But like, reduce the movement of the whose turn it is to a 0, and that's like one of your opponent's minions, and they lose 400 BP and 1 DP for that, the movement lost. That's actually pretty big. And then if you morph, you get to add this card back to your hand. Here's the thing, this card, if you play Chiron, it's really cheap, and you're able to nullify threats, and then if you morph yourself, you get to add it back, keeping your opponent at bay. This is a cycle card if you're able to do it right. One of my opponents did it right against me, which is why I tried it out, but I don't know how to use this card. I open with it and I'm like, this card's awful, this card's trash. But then somehow whenever it's used successfully against me, it's like, oh my god, this card's great. And I don't know, I have a mixed bag opinion on this card, but I think if you find the right Chiron build, it's possible if you're able to constantly just loop this card. But that means you also have to keep the Chiron alive, and I'm not sure if you really want to lower your life that low. Like 6 is as low as I would go for like a mass deck, because let's look at it. Let's face the facts. Most of the cards that are in the Heroes Masquerade, they are like 2 damage plus. That means you can only take 3 swings and you're gonna die. And if you take a 1 minor swing in the early game, that's going to ripple down to your late game. So anyways, these are some of the tech cards that you can try. So for the weakness of Blue Mass, you have to be aware of what all the minions do at each mana range. And like Orlean 2 is 300, no target. Orlean 3, 400, basically acts as a ramp. 5 as the tentacle, it's a 600 push. 5 has the 1000 blades, a 300 clone. 6 is where it's the real range of 700 minus 300, which is really threatening and also gives you additional movement. It's pretty insane of what it actually does. And then you have your board wipes, which is your 7 and 8s, and you just have to start paying attention from them starting at 2 mana just to know that which one are they going into. Now 100% main strategy you should know is that you should always avoid taking damage at 6+ mana. If you don't, you will die very threateningly. You can actually pay attention to this replay right now. Like, there's only like 1 minion here. It's the 4 cost, and my opponent, basically, they brick. They couldn't get the Angela out on the turn 4, and they will lose. That's how they would always lose. And the Reptilian, without getting a boost, is not going to be able to do enough damage, and now we're just going to push forward constantly. So in other words, you should never avoid taking damage at 6 at all times, or even if you take the damage, make sure you have a follow-up, because if you don't have a follow-up, you're going to die. Before 5, it's actually okay, but if you block if you can. You don't want them to transform their mana just so that they can actually get an additional ramp on you, and always pay attention to the mana count. One way to actually beat the deck is to break the Phoenix early. That way they can't actually additionally ramp on your turn, and they are not able to drop the Valk if they want to advance the game state. And that's actually a key component about that. Another key thing to keep in mind is match the amount of disruption to the mask minions on the opposing side so that you're preventing them from landing a swing. They're always going to be able to land some swing, but you just have to time it right so that you have a proper follow-up, so that when it is your turn, you're able to turn off all the remaining minions and actually go for face. And another way to actually stop them is to prevent them from mana ramping properly by using like stuff like Virtuous Knight or Conrad, so that the minions don't proc, or they just don't get to resurge their mana, because if the mana does not reactivate, they're not able to do the swooping plays. If they do swooping plays, they don't advance the game state. If they advance the game state, the swoops aren't exactly live during your opponent's turn, so that's how you can kind of keep them at bay. There's other weaknesses too, because it's rather predictable. So in terms of early game weaknesses, just kill all the mass minions. They usually cost about 300 to 400 DP, and if they lose that minion, they can't follow up, it's over. Flash phase disruptions are really essential. If you're able to kind of keep them at bay early on, they'll be a lot more manageable. You don't have to deal with the late game that gets extremely complicated. And damage reduction is also a really good one, because they have to hit force and keep yourself alive, basically buying you time. Blue decks don't really resurge most of their minions on your turn, so in other words, it'll be an empty board for you to swing to kind of beat them down. Another way to actually beat them would be to just rush them down by turn 2. I know red can do it, and I've lost to one red where they just dropped everything in turn 2 and I just died. So it's a possibility. Rush downs, break the Phoenix. Yeah, just don't let the minions kind of snowball out of control. Damage control, and you should be good to go. Okay, so we're going to be doing a bit of a rank match here, and let's see if I can actually showcase how the deck works. There are several ways that you can brick. One way is of course not getting any mask minions, and that is going to suck, like really bad. So I'm going to be looking down most of the time, but I'll see if I can get some commentary in as I go and give you guys my thought process. This doesn't seem too challenging. So they've got a Sphinx and an Ouroboros. My guess is this is 2 cost yellow. If it's 2 cost yellow. Okay, so I'm going first. This is not ideal. They're trying to dig for really trying to dig for the blue mana. Got the blue mana, got the Makuros, but no blue masks. So that is actually a worrying a very worrying condition here. This one's kind of burning some spells. What a waste. I usually don't like doing that. I like keeping it just so that I can have the additional movement in case my Pegasus gets broken. Oh, so this is not it. This is green mask. That's strange. Ouroboros instead. Alright. Let's get a little bit of a hand fix right now, because right now my hand is awful. Trade that away. I really want to get rid of that, but I can't. Alright, we'll trade 1. Base this. And then we just have to pass. We can't even drop our Mizo. This swing. Ooh. Drop the Makuru, give me the mana. We'll block it so they can't improve. It's worth the trade. Alright. Oh, not getting there not quite there yet. This will provide me with a ramp. I honestly think I am really behind. Give me the core. Ah, it's actually pretty good. I got to keep the movement. We're gonna activate it. We're gonna get the glove so that we can get a decent swing. We have 2 blocks here, but I'm really worried because he might get the minion with Pierce. That is not the minion with Pierce. He passed. This is my chance. This is the chance. I have 7. Alright. We're gonna activate it, get the bike. Alright. Not swinging. This is strange. It is afraid of what? I don't think there's anything you should be afraid of at the swing here. I mean, the only thing that I can really think of that's a threat that's making the AI want to pass. Like, they've only got 3 cards. They've got one mask here. I have 1 interaction here that doesn't exactly do enough. I can do like a 1-for-1 trade, but I might actually go for a swing here. I want to destroy the Sphinx. Twin Strike. That is a threat. That is a real threat. Resurge, kill. I don't think I should swing with this one now. Now that my Phoenix got turned off. Rest, swing. This one doesn't pierce, right? Alright, it doesn't pierce. Block them all. Block them all. Alright. I am not doing a neutral mana. Crazy. First of all, yes, we are going to activate this. We are going to make ourselves unblockable. We're going to swing. Why would I drop this? I'm not going to drop it yet. With a 6. We're gonna go for the swing. We're gonna weaken the stronger one. We're eventually gonna kill it. So we're gonna boost it with a regular core, which I think is a bit of a waste. We're gonna go for the swing again. We're gonna reduce it one more time. We're gonna base it, come back out, and then we're gonna boost it one more time. And we're gonna swing again. We're gonna kill it now. Force the block. And we're just gonna base this one in. And now we can actually do double block instead. Please just don't be the piercer. So it's not the piercer, we're fine. This one we can trade. By dropping the Valk, it's reduced, and then we can drop the Alex as well, so we can get the additional core, trading away our regular crappy mana. Oh, we actually already have a core, so I can't even get that. So yeah, we're gonna trade here, so it dies. Yeah, there we go. Have an extra 7. So I haven't gotten a chance to do my One Punch Man. And I have the Jet Phantom. I can transform one more time. Summon just to push it to the back. It doesn't really matter anymore. I think it's over. Do whatever you want. You have 1 card. So sometimes you actually just have to go against the AI because the AI would do really weird suggestions. And they, of course, the AI lost. I'm gonna give you guys one more game because that last one was like a come from behind game where you start with no mask and you just had to try to control as much as you can until you get to like the 6. I want to see if I can get a game where I start with the low mask and work my way up. So those are the different kinds of game flow that you might see. And I think the AI just isn't very smart with mask. I don't think they morph properly. I don't think they just do something really weird just to burn off a lot of your movement. I think this is a mirror match, which is good. Ooh, this is a yikes moment, but I do get double draw, so let's hope for the best. I'll work with this. I'm forced to drop a neutral. It's gonna recommend a neutral. No, it did not recommend neutral. Go first. Dropped card. Let's do it. This is going full out, I guess. Now, seeing my opponent open like this, either if they don't drop a color mana next turn, the game's more or less over for them. Get the Jet Phantom. Yes, we have to pass turn. Okay, next turn we got double drop right here. They did have a blue mana. They're fine. This one here is a 3 cost. If I block it, it can't base. And it can't really resurge either. So in other words, it's either got to do a pushback. At most, it's going to 4 mana. I'll be at 4 mana. I will pass. Yeah, it's gonna base out. So I get a free swing if I can draw into it. Nope, didn't draw into it. Let's start by going into Ray. Please just give me the card. No Ray. Okay, well, if that's what you're gonna do to me, then I need to set up the walls. I might die next turn. I'm the one who's falling behind now. Alright, movement. He's not pushing because now he's at 5 mana. He's also saving up. Oh, this is not good. This is not good. This is not good. Well, I got the Valk, and I also got the Alex. Let's just mana. We'll base him in. Okay, second one. Let's do it! Draw me a mana. I can drop. I can drop. We'll base in your dude. So I have right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, which means it's going to make me drop the Alex and then the Valk, so then I can actually get both. And that's going to advance my mana to the point where I can finally summon out the 7. It's okay, I start with a 5 still. Oh boy. Let's go with Alex. Drop the Valk. And we're gonna chump block. He's gonna boost. He's gonna swing again. He's gonna kill the Valk. Nope, he killed my big dude, of course. Is it? Yeah, let's go with the glove. Now it's gonna transform again? No, because it's already at the highest. How about suggesting a neutral mana? Do I want instant transformation? Well, I do have a 2 now, so I actually can drop quite a few things. Let's drop the 6. We're trying to burn a couple of cards right now. Swing, kill. There it is. Oh, someone's playing Deep Breathe. Wow. Rough. We're not done yet. We're back. We're gonna have to break that. The Phoenix, he's gonna get 2 movement right now, and he can move both of the dudes out, and both of which are a threat. Transform one more time. I feel much safer if I can actually break both of them, because then that means there's less movement, and if there's less movement, I feel safer overall. Break it. Let jelly go back out. Break it. The reason why I broke it is so that he can only push one minion out, and then he won't have enough to actually boost. That's gonna push a lot of guys back, or one girl back. Luckily I got that wall. This one is... Oh, I got two. He summoned out one. We'll block one. Into itself. Oh, interesting. Let's pass. I have enough minions for a 2 push. You have to block at some point. Well, guess what? I think that was the right move. There we go. It's time to summon out Star Platinum. And we'll finish him off. That was really close. There we go. And that's why you break both. Of course, the AI, once again, my AI keeps losing, so you guys can easily kill my AI, but these are some of the the differences that you have. Like, yeah, this is a losing game and you still end up winning simply because you just did the right moves. Yeah, so that's kind of the rundown of Blue Mask. How I kind of got there, it's just that sometimes you just have to go for the OTK, and if you can get successfully OTK, it's still worth it. Like I was in a losing state for most of it because I was so behind, but it doesn't really matter if you're coming from behind. As long as you're able to successfully land the last shot, it's all that really matters. And that's where I think Green Mask completely agrees with that notion, because they can be completely losing and they're just like, here's 6 damage to the face. Alright guys, that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash the thumbs up button. If you guys want to see more stuff from, well, TomBoxZ and for myself, well, subscribe, ding notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.